Cucurella just looks as close to half man, half doodle, like we bred some crazy human doodle. You can't send off a cute human doodle, can you, Ro?
He doesn't look like a kind of brute. There's a sense that he doesn't really know what he's doing. He's just having a nice time. Man Martin's a really important skill, and it's actually something we don't see often enough, but Cucurella's really good at it.
We back! Like the Chicago Bears, Chelsea-Arsenal was a thunderous affair. Like a chess boxing game of football. First half all boxing, second half a little more chess. Breaking news, who would have thought it? Liverpool win and are above Everton in the table for the first time in, checks note, 6 long days. An eternity. Also little Manchester United shock. Big bully Crystal Palace. Big bully Manchester City dropped scrappy to Leeds United, and Tyler Adams scored a goal that screamed like a bald eagle. We'll break it all down with a gent who's a light in the darkness. It's a joy to welcome back Crown Prince of Harrogate. It's Mr. Rory Smith.
And at last, Rog, we don't have to talk about Liverpool losing.
Oh, Raw, you are living proof of the old football truth. You only sing when you're winning.
Do you know what? I think the last few weeks have taught me real humility. I think that
I've not noticed.
You've not kind of fully understood what it is to be a football fan until you thought, do you know what's a good result? A point at the London Stadium. That's how I spent my weekend, convincing myself. Do you know what? A draw at West Ham was really tough, and then they went and won. And I don't want to gloat. I don't want to kind of bask in it. I just want to not talk about them losing.
I know, it's joyous. It's like a sunny day during a nuclear winter, Raw. But Raw, irrespective of the Premier League, you are still poised to come to our loving arms. You're coming to the United States for a pair of sold-out World Cup draw shows. Friday, New York City. Saturday, with Noah Kahan, amongst others, up in Boston. Are you ready?
I'm ready, except that I'm not sure I've got a coat that's appropriate for the Boston winter. How cold is it in Boston, Rog?
It's never possible. Take some pressure off you to have a coat that's warm enough for it. It's like Liverpool. No matter how warm your coat is, somehow the cold always works out ways to permeate.
Obviously, in Britain, I'm very much used to the idea that waterproofing clothes is kind of a myth. that the rain will get you somehow. But no, I'm really excited. Yeah, New York first, then Boston. It's a long, long time since I've been to Boston. We've got lots and lots of food recommendations, Rog, that we have to follow. So we're going to be very full. I think that's important. I hope Noah Kahan's joining us. I don't know. I don't know if he likes Italian food, but he's going to find out.
I think he loves it all. I mean, that is a man that just loves life and loves football, and probably will be utterly elated judging by his Instagram stories during the Chelsea performance. But the World Cup draw, it's a really odd affair. Yes, on one hand, footballing kitsch, guaranteed. But it's also the moment when the World Cup gets very, very real.
Yeah, I always think... So it's really easy to laugh at FIFA and UEFA and presumably all the other confederations as well, and how much they really just love a draw. And you can't underestimate how much these people like a draw. They want to be on a stage, they want to have a pot full of balls, they want to do some grabbing. It's one of their hobbies. So even when they redesigned the Champions League, they found a way to have a draw, even though you don't need to have a draw with a bracket. That's the point. The bracket serves the same function as the draw. But UEFA were like, well, we can't not have a draw, so let's change it so we have a little bit of a draw. And that is all risible and laughable, obviously. But at the same time, when you see the groups, when you kind of get a sense of what the pathways might be, that's when you can start to imagine the tournament. It's when it comes from being this kind of nebulous thing in the distant future to something that is imminent and around the corner and has a shape. And that is undeniably, for all the concerns over FIFA, for all the concerns over the politicisation, for all the worries about this World Cup, that is really exciting.
Yeah, I will say, like, this is the moment as an American where we get to match the world with the 11 cities in the United States will be hosting. Like, I can just imagine South Korea in Los Angeles. I can imagine Scotland being drawn in, like New York or Philadelphia. Just the wonder of it. It is. You build every single pathway and it will be magnificent. 94 draw. I don't know if you remember that, Roy. You're a little bit young, but I'd say it was a high watermark for draws. It was chef's kit. It took place in Caesars Palace, Vegas Strip.
Classy, always classy. I'm sure this one will be even classier. The list of celebrities on stage was pretty special, wasn't it? Was it AC Slater from Saved by the Bell?
I don't think they could afford him. They did. They got Manilow. I was speaking to Tony Miola, who did the Stone Pony show with us a couple of weeks ago, because he represented the American team, and he said Manilow had clearly no idea whatsoever what he was doing there. Julio Iglesias was there. The actress Faye Dunaway. I mean, they just shipped in everybody. It wasn't clear, I think, to most people what it was. And my friend Bob Lee, I just rewatched this. He's because I wrote a book all about the World Cup, and my memories had to check them on the reality. So ESPN's host Bob Lee was doing the commentating, and at the beginning he just shouted out, he goes, "This is like Salvador Dali produced the state lottery," which is just an incredible line.
They had Robin Williams.
Yes,
That's a good get.
Stole the spotlight. I don't know. By the way, this is worth Googling, listeners. The late, great Robin Williams at the FIFA draw. Then Sepp Blatter was the general secretary, I think, of FIFA. And he kept to his face, on repeat, referring to Sepp Blatter. Somebody who took himself very, very seriously. Kept referring to him as Sepp Blatter, which is just amazing, until Sepp Blatter just got so annoyed in the middle of the draw. He goes, "This is not a comedy," I think that's the bar we set last time, America.
This isn't fair to spring it on you without any kind of prep time, Rog. But if you take the list of celebrities from the 1994 draw, who are their equivalents in 2025? Who is our culture's Robin Williams?
I think the answer is just Kid Rock. Every time Barry Manilow, Julio Iglesias, Faye Dunaway, Robin Williams. I think it's probably
Bad Bunny for Julio Iglesias. That's where culture. Or Daddy Yankee, maybe.
Yeah.
Faye Dunaway. I'm not that familiar with Faye Dunaway's oeuvre.
Faye Dunaway was just like a classic actress. It would be like getting Mirren or Streep or both. Getting Streep and Mirren, playing two at the back.
So that's a high bar to set. Like, it's easy to scoff at like people who were famous in the 90s, but you don't have to pull it out a little bit to get someone equivalent to Williams.
I'm trying to think who Manilow's equivalent is in today's.
Is there a thing called John Mayer?
I think actually the equivalent of Manilow 94 is Manilow 2025 to make it so he's exhume him now for the World Cup draw week, which is here. And so are our pair of sold out shows. Friday, December the 5th. We'll be in the Grand Ballroom at the Manhattan Centre. Rory will be here, the Great Horny, James Horncastle. We'll break it all down with us in real time. This is a second screen watch along for you at home on our YouTube channel, kicking off 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Come and be with us. I'm going to make a prediction now. I believe the US will face South Korea, Raw, stay with me here, Scotland and Cape Verde.
Oh, okay. This is even. I mean, you know how scornful I am of like predicting who's going to win the title or who's going to win the Champions League. Who is going to get who in a random draw, Rog? Feels like it's probably beneath me. But since we're here,
how low can you go?
Let's create content. So I'm going to say Uruguay. Something to be good.
Bielsa.
Erling Haaland's Norway.
Oh my God! Please, no.
And Jordan.
Take it. Jordan. I think Michael, we could play. That would be amazing if we just played Michael Jordan against Jordan. That would be the matchup that the world would want. I think I fancy our chances.
South Korea would be Pochettino against Son. I'd enjoy that.
Oh, by the way, Jordan Henderson and Jordan Pickford surely have got to play against Jordan.
That would be ideal, yeah. England's team of Jordans just against all Jordan.
The Jordans. We can, but if we did play Jordan, we'd have to just only play that. Those are the rules. We'd only be able to play Jordans against Jordan. And
Jordan Belfort.
I still fancy. Yeah, America will put up Michael Jordan and Jordan Belfort. Hey, come on! By the way, that's the way to get America to fall in love with soccer. If we just played those two at the back, like Gabriel and Saliba, I think America would genuinely fall in love. By the way, I'm still selling, because Saturday, December the 6th, this is an epic show for the ages, headed up to Boston. We're going to break down in great detail all of the opportunities the draw has cooked up. We'll be on stage with Clint Dempsey and Hurt Gomez, going deep on the American journey. Rory and James obviously going big on everyone else in the world. It's a lot of ground you got to cover, Raw. Sam Lewis also will be there. And New England's favourite son, Noah Kahan, will sit down to discuss his love of football in general, Chelsea in particular, and why the United States are going to win the whole bloody thing. I can't wait to be with you, Boston. We are going to dive in, but first I've got to give a huge thanks to the Bank of America, official bank of US Soccer, and the FIFA World Cup 2026 for supporting all of us at the Men in Blazers Media Network. Discover what's possible in sports and in life. What would you like the power to do? I'd like the power to kick off this show and start with a toast. I want to raise my third first Michelob Ultra of the day to Lionel Messi, who at the weekend led his team into Miami to the Promised Land. And by the Promised Land, I mean MLS Cup final, which I like to believe, he dreamed of as a kid in Rosario. By the way, we laugh about that, but you saw the emotion that his mum had post-final whistle, just kissing him, hugging him, as if it was a childhood dream. It's why I love football. He and his Barca old boys, Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, and the creaking cartilages that are Luis Suarez, will face a familiar foe, Thomas Muller, that quite charming German wonder who seems both bemused and amused and highly entertained by his MLS experience, with his feisty Vancouver side who shocked Sonny's ALFC on the road to the final. When Muller arrived, Raw, some of his first words were quite joking. I will hunt Lionel Messi, which sounds a little less joking out of his mouth. Indeed, Muller has in their head-to-head won 7 games to Messi's 3. This final then, I do believe it's a huge win for MLS, as either team has got a global megaphone to trumpet its existence to the world. Is any of this making any impact in the UK, Raw? A distant echo?
Yeah, no, it is, I think. There's obviously the story around Messi and that kind of roving band of Barca veterans is something that people are aware of, people are following. You see the Inter Miami shirts everywhere. Like, as you know, as one of England's leading under-8 coaches, we at training on Saturday, I think there were 2, and these are not kids from Florida, they are kids from Yorkshire.
The Miami of England.
The Miami, well, even I wouldn't stretch to that, Rog, to be honest. Bournemouth is the Miami of England. It's not the weather. There is an awareness that Inter Miami.
More the Palm Beach.
I don't know. That's not a reference that I can confirm or deny. You have beaten me there.
Harry Redknapp would live in Palm Beach, but keep going.
Okay,
baby.
fine. Yeah, exactly. So no, Inter Miami have got like a footprint. There is a sense around them. And to be honest, Thomas Muller is one of those players who's quite universally popular. Like, people really like Thomas Muller. He maybe went on a year or two too long at Bayern, and as a player, people started to maybe look at him and question whether he should be in that team. But as a character, he's always been really well liked, Muller. He's funny, he's engaging, he's charismatic. I think it is, from an international perspective, I think this is quite a good MLS Cup final, to be honest. It's the sort of game that the league needs.
It is a great one. Godspeed to all. I cannot wait to watch. But before we get into the football, quick mention today. It's a national holiday, I think. Cyber Monday, final day of our sale at theshop.com, meninblazers.com. It's a lot of .coms in there, but go. Get stuck in. Grab something for yourself or for a football mad loved one ahead of the holidays. I feel a bit like Thomas Tuchel wearing the club shop on the sideline myself, for
If there's any help, Rog, that's where my wife has asked for all of her Christmas presents to come from. So we are, we're making progress.
God bless your wife. She will be / won't be disappointed. But let's get to the football. With that, I thought an epic rumble. Chelsea won, Arsenal won. Now, before the weekend, this was a clash between second and first. Chelsea, who just demolished Barcelona midweek in the Champions League, welcoming Arsenal, vaunted Arsenal, who quite comfortably thumped Bayern Munich. Real sense of title challenge proctology exam, or sense of colliding truths crackling under the floodlights at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea, this young collective, starting Estevao, the teen sensation, now known delightfully in the Chelsea way as Steve. Given the start, Cole Palmer back on the bench, the last door fighter. For Arsenal, squad so deep, but also how infinite. Saliba, latest to get a knock in training, being interviewed by me, does that to a man. Gabriel, already out. Hincapié and Mosquera starting together. And it was a thunderous start, Raw. It was speed, it was intensity, it was passion, it was tackles flying in, signals sent, feet left in, Thunderdome crap. At Carl, in our Discord, said, Cucurella plays like he has no idea what the rules are, but is somehow still a very good player. This was football of Sean Connery, Raw, in The Untouchables. They pull a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one to the morgue. That is the Chelsea-Arsenal way.
Yeah, before the weekend, I think the way this game had been trailed was very much kind of the last stand of the title race. It was, Liverpool have fallen, City have fallen, being beaten by Newcastle last weekend. Chelsea weren't anyone's idea of obvious title contenders at the start of the season, but they're all we've got left. If we want the season not to be a procession until May, Arsenal need to drop points. And I think that framing of it was totally natural, totally understandable. We live in a hype business. What was really interesting was that the players clearly believed it. Like the players on both teams played like this was a title decider. They weren't seeking to control the game, to nullify the opposition, to try and kind of take the sting out of the occasion. They were all sting. It was really breathless. It wasn't desperately refined, to be perfectly honest. There was a little bit of kind of people looking for free kicks, but it was what you expect of that sort of game. It was blood and thunder, spit and sawdust. A proper kind of. I always think of Jim Ross, the wrestling commentator, with games like that. It was a slobber knocker.
That's the technical term. I'd love to hear Arteta. That is like, let's go out and have a slobber knocker. I mean, it would just be genuinely amazing. No doubt he got Jim Ross in there pickpocketing before the game to just hype those players up. And that was what was amazing. All these remarkable footballers. All week we were like, who'll win the battle of midfield? And, the permutations, Enzo, Caicedo, Declan Rice, all this stuff. There was little in the way of midfield control. This was helter-skelter, full tilt. Reece James, mesmeric. Declan Rice, insatiable. Best chances probably fell to Estevao early, but he was heightened. Chelsea were just a complete ripple muscle. And I have to say, there was a slight insecurity to Arsenal's play. A team that are built on the blind trust, the foundational trust they have in Gabriel and Saliba. The absence of both. You felt that gnawing naturally at their sense of self. Got to say, Cucurella, I mentioned him. He's a remarkable footballer. Watching him play Saka just constantly. As soon as Saka touch the ball, go right through him. I swear, I have a theory. It goes up with my Guendouzi theory. I think it's an extension of, if Cucurella did not have a poodle haircut, I do believe refs would judge him so much harsher. You know how dogs become attuned to humans and they can look at us in a way that manipulates us. They learn how to give us dog eyes. Cucurella just looks almost as close to half man, half doodle, like we bred some crazy human doodle. You can't send off a cute human doodle, can you, Rob?
I think do you know what? That sounds nuts, obviously, but there must be something in it, because he doesn't look like a hard man. He doesn't look like a kind of brute. If he was all like neck tattoos and shaved head, and he was clattering people, I think referees probably would judge him more harshly. He's also got a little bit of a reputation, Cucurella, maybe for being rash rather than malicious, which I wonder if that helps as well a little bit. That there's a sense that he doesn't really know what he's doing. He's just having a nice time.
Exactly what he was doing. If you watch the game again, which I did, every single time Saka got the ball early, signal. And then the ref, and he just genuinely, like my dog Martin Scorsese looks at me when he's done something terrible, like, or any dog owner knows, I don't have to reenact it.
I think you should. But the other thing is that man marking, and that's Cucurella shut down Lamine and Saka in the space of 4 days.
Kind of shut down Saka. Man marking's a really important skill, and it's actually something we don't see often enough. Just that there was a time in football, not that long ago, where it was pretty standard just to say, well, that guy's their best player, don't let him touch the ball. And now, because systems are king and no one wants to kind of give away part of their attacking weaponry, you see it less and less, but Cucurella's really good at it. By the way, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting, saying he pocketed Saka in this one. God bless Bukayo. But watching those early exchanges, I marvel because, number one, Chelsea stepping up. But number two, this was exactly the kind of tactic that used to make Arsenal buckle. I talked to Saliba about this on Friday. No longer will they be bullied. I mean, this is, to me, the most impressive part of the Arteta transformation. And then it went headless. Caicedo going in on Marino, left him with a stamp, then quite fantastically feigned his own injury, which was really chef's kiss of a gentleman that's just delivered an ankle breaker. This Chelsea and red card love story, I think, how many is it? Their 7th red in their last 15 games. This one, though, felt so unnecessary because they were just upper-handing the game.
Yeah, they were on top. It had been a bit of a battle for for supremacy. No one was in control. It wasn't a battle for control. They didn't want control, but Chelsea were on top, and they were starting to push Arsenal back. And the challenge wasn't in a dangerous area. It wasn't a kind of last gasp thing. It was, I guess, maybe just taking that physical, that robust approach just a little bit too far. But in that moment, you think, well, right, that's it. That's this game gone, and with it, possibly the season, because Arsenal are the best team in the country by a long, long way. Chelsea can't beat them with 10 men. Chelsea won't be able to resist. Arsenal will be able to grind them down. And it felt almost a shame when Caicedo got sent off, not just because Chelsea were reduced to 10, but because the one they were missing is their best player.
But you've also got to remember, Raw, Chelsea with 10 men, that's almost their factory default setting.
They know what they're doing.
And I want to say, I do miss the old school days of classic football when teams used to get the Reds. Just the old school way, for slapping their own teammates across the face. But the game opened up suddenly with all of that space. It was all the better for it. Gabriel Martinelli forced a fine save from Sanchez with a sizzling low drive. Chelsea still had the quality individually to make Arsenal unsure. A lot of people at halftime moaning about the lack of shots. I think there was like 3 total on goal in that first half. The XG, yes, minimal. But I've got to say, I loved it, Raw. It was psychologically and emotionally, it was such taut fare.
Yeah, it was a really, really absorbing game. As I say, you can kind of, I guess you could quibble with the quality of the attacking play, but to see two teams that intense, that determined, that kind of grizzled, it's really hard not to find it completely compelling. It was a really, really good game for what it was. It wasn't, Lionel Messi's Inter Miami. It was a pitched Premier League battle, but that's kind of the selling point of the Premier League, isn't it?
It was. I mean, it was such fraught fare, and it came alive right after half-time, 48th minute. Also getting a taste of their own set-piece FC. Medicine, fine corner. By the way, Chelsea second only to Arsenal for scoring from set-piece goals before the weekend's games. Chalobah's fine flick, Chelsea's 10th goal from a set-piece. This kid joined Chelsea, age of 8. Has honestly found it hard to hold down a place in the squad, loan after loan. But here, rising up to flick an exquisite header past Arsenal themselves. This was like watching the Bears make the Eagles fumble on the tush push. This was perfectly executed, caressing that ball home. Stunning moment. Oh, just the Superman Selly Raw in the game itself, in the title race. It felt ecstatic.
It did, and it felt like everything Chelsea deserved, because they had ridden out the fact they'd lost Caicedo. They'd been able to impose themselves on Arsenal. And crucially, they'd kind of shown no fear. Like, we think of Chelsea as being this incoherent mess of new signings, and there's no real kind of team spirit, there's no real shape, there's no real form to anything at Chelsea. And Maresca's job, or whoever the manager is, their job is to kind of find some way of making sense of whatever Chelsea is at any given moment, but it's always shifting, it's always changing. There was real heart in Chelsea's performance, and that was what meant that when they went ahead, not only did you think, fair enough, you thought, this is a job for Arsenal now to try and turn it round.
It did. It felt like it was like, oh my Lord, oh no, because it was just the 7th goal that Arsenal have conceded in the entire league this season, and it was really fascinating to see how they'd respond. They were honestly shell-shocked to begin with. Ødegaard and Chelsea Benedict-Arnold, Nonne Madueke were thrown on. Their impact immediate. Within 2 minutes, Saka tormented Cucurella, made the Chelsea defence buckle, floated in a Lob City cross for the quite potent Mikel Merino to dunk home. Cue to delirium. 20 goals in 2025 for that big man. Raw, can we take that word makeshift off his centre forward title? When does it stop being makeshift?
There used to be a concept of a utility player that's died out, because we now think of players as being specialists. You have to be not only like a midfielder, you have to be a defensive midfielder. You have to be an 8. You have to be a 10 or a 6. Like, it's all become so refined and so specific. But back in the days before 5 subs, back in the days before 3 subs, Rog, as you will remember, there were certain players who did like 3 things. It was like, well, they can play left back, left wing, up front. They're a centre half, and they're a striker, because you needed that. You needed that versatility, because you didn't have the resources that teams do now. Merino is a midfielder and he is a forward. He is both of those things. He can actually play defensive midfield, attacking midfield, and centre forward. And that makes him incredibly valuable, because when he's up front, you don't think Arsenal will lack cutting edge. You think maybe, all right, if Gyökeres is on, maybe they'll have a little bit more cutting edge. But Merino's return's pretty good.
Yeah, he's like Michael Keane is the only other player I can think who is a centre forward and a makeshift centre back. But I do think it's time to take this asterisk off him. This makeshift notion does him a deep disservice. We've got to credit Chelsea in this second half. I was blown away. My game notes at around 70 minutes, I wrote they will tire. They did not tire. They kept coming, kept conjuring shots. I think they had more shots with 10 men than City had mustered with 11 against Arsenal. Delap had a chance on the turn for Chelsea. I was, by the way, so impressed with David Raya. I don't think he gets enough love within this Arsenal setup. I once interviewed the Manchester United legend, their keeper, Edwin van der Sar, and he talked about how when United were at their peak, he said, you don't understand how hard it is to keep a focus as a goalkeeper when the other team barely attack. But you just got to be constantly ready when they do. He said he used to sweat through his shirt just waiting for that one or two saves. He's amazing at keeping locked and ready. Keep watching him. It's remarkable to watch his focus and his concentration. I admired Chelsea also. Defending and constantly counter like that for so long without tiring needs its own kind of mental fortitude. And it ended 1-1. I was sweating by the end of it. I was just watching along on my couch. I want to pay tribute to Chelsea first, Rog. I was really moved by this performance. You've kind of hit this. We talk about them as being like almost an unstable element, personality that's just shuffling through the options, really, in a league that's based on duels rather than team identity. But I saw a young team really come of age here. They will draw so much strength from the way they fought with every ounce of their being in this one. You could tell that full time. This is what impressed me the most. They were disappointed with the result. They weren't celebrating at the final whistle. They were almost disappointed, which to me is the ultimate mark of the mentality that Maresca's imbuing. This title challenge wilted last year pretty well around this time when I said yes. I'll say it. I said it. You didn't. I thought they were title challenges. This year, do you see a difference? Are they for real?
100%. I think watching that performance yesterday, it's really hard not to see a difference. You've used the phrase I would. It was a coming-of-age performance. That's exactly what it was. The circumstances of losing your kind of, maybe best players pushing it, but your most consistent player, your most reliable player, like the linchpin of your team, to a red card after less than half an hour, and then facing down the champions-elect. And ending the game, Reece James said this afterwards, ending the game disappointed that you did not win. That showcases how well Chelsea played. It showcases their mentality. It shows that there is something forming at Chelsea. I don't know if they're ready yet to win the league, but if they can, and it's quite a big if in Chelsea's case because of the ownership model, if they can add a couple of players to this team, then they're really, really close. Because
you mean as opposed to adding 10? You just need a couple.
Yeah, as opposed to like signing 14 and selling 8. Like, you don't need complete change. It doesn't need another revolution. If Arsenal wobble, then it looks to me like Chelsea are to be taken seriously this season. I don't think Arsenal will wobble enough for Chelsea to kind of make the most of it. But yeah, within a year or so, you can see that Maresca is building something. And it's not just with the superstar signings. It's not just Estevao and Cole Palmer, even Joao Pedro.
He's been out since September.
Yeah, so they've done all of this without their most creative player. But it's not just those kind of big names that get the headlines and get the attention. It's the fact that, he's turned Marc Cucurella into a really, really good left-back. He's getting the best out of Wesley Fofana, who's had such problems with injury. There is a real team taking shape at Chelsea. I watched the game yesterday and thought this team is a coming force.
Yeah, I mean, but by the way, Pedro Neto has been, for me, one of the delights to watch this season. Arsenal, where are you in this performance? A performance with so many injuries. On one hand, I think they'll feel with deep relief that they emerged intact from this quite brutal test. Or will bigger percentage of them be frustrated that they couldn't finish off this game when they had a man advantage for, 52 minutes? Yeah,
a lot of the reaction here, Rog, has been kind of Arsenal lacked the killer instinct, that they were too cautious, that they should have gone for the jugular against Chelsea, that because they played for so long with the man advantage that you are expected to win. I think I take the same approach as I suspect Mikel Arteta will, which is Stamford Bridge is one of your hardest fixtures of the season. Chelsea are in a bit of a purple patch. They've hit form. They've only lost once since September. They are a good team. They were second. You've gone away from home and you've taken a point. That is a point closer to the title. It is not 2 points dropped.
And by the way, that for me, the Arsenal story is the big picture story. And if I was an Arsenal fan, I would be elated to be a third of the way through the season, to have so many players seizing their moment, knowing their role when they're given the moment, and to be 5 points clear at the top, which I think for Arsenal is the only thing that matters right now. From drawing to winning, Raw, West Ham 0, Liverpool 2. It's not a typo, but this is who we are now. Liverpool fans, we talked about it, slightly quaking at the prospect of a visit to Bubble City. That's what happens when you're A, defending champions, and B, you've experienced the unprecedented free fall of 9 defeats in 12 games, worst run in, 71, 72 years. Just a fog of a team that strolled to the title last season, supposedly strengthened for $594 million, and instead, no energy, no composure, no decision-making in the performance, no fight recently, just the basics gone. You had the old phrase being thrown back in their face. Can you say, leave the football before the football leaves you, about an entire squad? Here, West Ham, fired up by the quite emotional passing of Billy Bonds, West Ham talisman when I was a kid, just a warrior who bled claret and blue in the days when football was truly unbridled ferocity. I think 799 games for the club, played until his 40s, I think retired when he was 41. In today's currency, that would be like playing until you're like 60. Captain during 2 FA Cup wins in 75 and 80. In this moment, in this context, Raw, the decision fatefully made, cometh the hour, droppeth the man. 33-year-old Mo Salah finally dropped to the bench for the first time since April 2024. Been playing like he has a glitch, like an Airbus. Slot, careful to say, after 53 straight Premier League starts, that he had been rested. We play 4 games in 10 days. Sometimes Alex is on the bench, sometimes Florian. This is the 11 I chose today. Was this for you the least shocking moment that's come to pass? With AFCON coming, might we as well prepare to lose Mo for a long spell, or how did you understand this?
Yeah, you can read it both ways, can't you? You can say either Liverpool had to get used to the idea of how do you play without Mo Salah, or is it not in the club's interest just to use him as much as possible until he disappears for AFCON, because ultimately Liverpool don't really care how Egypt do in the African Cup of Nations. That's not their responsibility. It's really sad that Salah's form, Liverpool's form over the last few weeks, has brought everyone into this situation where there are lots of Liverpool fans proclaiming that they want Mo Salah dropped, because it's hard to see that sentiment and not think maybe that's not how you should talk about one of the 5 best players in the club's history. But that said, I think in terms of display, like form, it's not a controversy. Like, Salah's not been playing well. I actually thought he was okay against Nottingham Forest, but even against PSV 3 days later, Liverpool's latest nadir, you watch him and you think, well, it's not just that he's not impacting games in the way he used to, or that he's not dominating kind of games. He's not the central figure, the main character of games. It's that even in those instances where he gets a sight of goal, he's sort of ballooning shots over the bar, he's putting them wide. I think if it was any other player, there would have been no quibbling about the fact that he'd been dropped. And ultimately, there comes a point where every player has to kind of be treated the same. They have to be subject to the same rules. Slot went for a slightly more balanced, slightly maybe more cautious team. And I think, given the way that everyone's been playing, it was probably called for.
Mo out, Joe Gomez in, making his first league starter right back since September 2023. So almost a lovely surprise that you got through the first 10 minutes without conceding, Raw. I mean, this is where we are now. Nuno content to let Forest sit deep, hoping to defend and counter later. Early on, Liverpool had all the initiative. It's fascinating watching Wirtz in the early exchanges, Raw. I watched this game twice, just so I could watch Wirtz, who became ever more influential. But the early exchanges, Raw, you watch him so frustrated that his teammates couldn't find him on repeat. It was really fascinating to watch when play just passed him by. Worked out how to influence the game ultimately. But bloody hell, thinking about his mind space must be so frustrating to go from a Xavi Alonso system designed always to play to his strengths individually to playing in this chaos where Gakpo and Gravenberch don't know how to find him all the time yet.
Yeah, those bonds, those connections within a team, they take time. They're not instant. I mean, I guess occasionally, you'll get a team and a player that just kind of dovetail naturally, and that can be magical, Rog. But in most cases, you have to kind of work each other out. You have to figure out where do they like the ball, what spaces are they going to be in, how do they like to receive the ball, how do we make the best of them. And that is for Liverpool to learn. But it's also to an extent for Wirtz to learn. Like, Wirtz has to learn how to kind of be in positions that his teammates are inclined to play him the ball in. I guess that'll be different in the Bundesliga and the Premier League. There will be a bit of kind of cultural crossover there that he has to get used to. But I think in his absence over the last week, one thing that I took from it, Rog, one of my key learnings, was that Florian Wirtz hasn't been affecting games, but he does make Liverpool better. They look more lively when he's in the team. They look like they have more ideas, a bit more energy, a bit more faith in their own ability. Because as much as he's maybe not got the output yet, as much as the goals and the assists aren't there, he does continually show for the ball. He does continually try and make things happen. The way players operate is that they will know from training just how good he is. So his presence will make them feel a little bit more confident. And I think what you saw in the game at West Ham was as he settled down, as they settled down, they were able to kind of extricate that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, that's called foreshadowing, Raw. I've got to say, Isak, that first half looked flat-footed. I wrote in my game notes, he looks as if Beto and Tierno Barry had a red bastard baby. First, a bold save from Areola, point-blank. Wirtz could have, should have scored on the stroke of half-time. A poke with just the keeper to beat, which he failed upon. Isak just 3 passes in that first half. But West Ham did not so much as summon a single shot on target, which was astonishing to me against a Liverpool that had conceded 10 times in their last 3. This stat was amazing. Liverpool's 11 starters had scored a combined 152 Premier League goals in their careers, which was 38 fewer than Mo Salah's 190. That was the pressure that they were playing under as they toiled in that first half. Second half, West Ham won corner after corner to begin with, became nervy fair, but then the magic happened, just how Liverpool drew it up in their dreams, and by dreams I mean the summer transfer window. Wirtz fed Gakpo, who found Isak on the edge of the area, and the Swede quite instinctively just thrashed that ball home low near corner. Stunning strike, really an emphatic moment. Very little reaction from Isak in the second on the outside anyway. Finally a Premier League goal after, 382 dark moments. A very difficult finish made look easy. To me, Raw, this was like seeing a very constipated man just eat a bowl of great fibre and become completely unconstipated with the entire world watching. It was like mocking meme shattering, this moment. Significant.
That is a very evocative image, Roger. I'm glad you've chosen to go for that one. But I do know what you mean. The primary reaction for Isak, and I think for quite a lot of Liverpool fans, was relief that first goal has come, that he's broken that seal. There's still a long way to go. It was it was one of those goals that makes you think that goal scoring is instinctive. It is an instinct, and I think not every player has it. Isak very clearly does. His career tells you that. But whether he can do it reliably, as you say, I mean, he's a difficult player to judge because he's kind of a traditional number 9. He doesn't do a huge amount in the game, doesn't contribute a vast amount to build-up play. He's kind of there, and he's there for moments like that. That said, I think the fact that West Ham chose not to mark the most expensive striker in British history as he stood on their penalty spot, that's a choice, Rog. That's a real choice.
I mean, by the way, you're right, there's more to come. Still managing his playing time slightly. He was pulled off slightly, minutes after that. Liverpool actually let West Ham into the game, especially when Fulkrug came on, but then Paqueta got 2 yellow cards for dissent from Darren England. I don't know if you got anything to say on this. It's like an odd moment, a surreal moment. What I can say is he's clearly working hard on his sarcastic applause in training.
He's very good at it. It was, I think, the weirdest sending off I've ever seen. I can't think, maybe that's hyperbole. I can't think of one to rival it. The reaction of the players around him is really telling.
As an Everton fan, I'm like,
fair point. It is the second weirdest sending off of the week, Rog. And that's saying something. I think if you look at the reaction of the players around him, they're really telling. So Szoboszlai's baffled by why he's so upset. Like Szoboszlai's looking at Paqueta as if to say, "What have I missed something?" You then have Alisson, the Liverpool goalkeeper, run out of his goal to try to stop Lucas Paqueta, his opponent but teammate for Brazil, getting himself sent off. And every time Paqueta's given a kind of out, Jared Bowen or Alisson or Curtis Jones, someone kind of stops him. he sort of circumvents them and goes back to complain at the referee. He's come out and tweeted to say that it's kind of a consequence of all that he's been through with the ban, the prospective ban he had for betting on matches. He's been exonerated of that, found completely innocent. He basically said, both in Portuguese and in English, kind of that it's the stress that he's been under that's made him behave that way. In Portuguese, he kind of apologised. In English, didn't come quite as close to apologising for it. It looked a little bit more kind of excuse-makey in English. That may well just be because it's his second language. We have to be forgiving there. But it is certainly amongst the weirdest non-Everton sendings off I've seen this season.
God bless, and to better days for all Hammers fans. By the way, West Ham did come alive with 10, but Liverpool killed the game off late with a Gakpo finish. And finally, Liverpool having a better week than Campbell's soup. But you could tell by Gakpo's reaction when he scored. Little joy, just pure relief. That's the mindset at Liverpool right now. First point on the road since mid-September. Benching Salah made the team look better. It would have been a total bloody disaster if that final break glass in emergency change had not worked, Raw. The Isak's goal, which I hope is an important moment. I don't love human suffering. He's clearly been suffering. Wirtz, the best player on the field, clean sheet too. What did you feel at the final whistle?
Relief again. I think that as you say, the reaction of Isak and Gakpo to the goals is really telling. That there's no joy in it. I think a lot of Liverpool fans would say that, and I'm certain the Liverpool players would say that it's one game. It's one game against the team that's currently 19th in the Premier League, who did not play very well. West Ham had been in a little bit of form. They'd started to turn the corner a little bit under Nuno, but this was not West Ham at their best. It wasn't Liverpool at their best particularly. It was a competent performance, and what I said at the start is true, that I'd gone into that thinking, do you know what? I'd take a point. I'd just take not losing a football match. So to win is a real bonus, but the reaction within the club and from the fans will be. We've got Sunderland on Wednesday night, who are flying, and then you've got Leeds away, both of which are games that, Liverpool, if they are to be a team that fulfills their own expectations, would want to win.
You'd take 2 points.
I'd certainly take 4 would be fine, Rog. But yeah, if it was, there's no guarantee because it's just one game. As you say, it's a sunny day in a nuclear winter. So I think there's still work to do. It's not that the crisis is over or that everything's fine or that Slot's found a solution. I think, ideally you'd go into that Sunderland game with Joe Gomez at right back, but there's no way of telling whether Joe Gomez can play 2 games in 3 days, having barely played for a year. So there are lots and lots of questions over Liverpool. Some of them were answered on Sunday, but not all of them.
Amazingly, you're in 8th place now, 1 point off the putative 5th place that's good enough for Champions League, which I think is all that matters right now. In the craziness, the chaos of this season, there's darkness, but there's light so unbelievably bloody quickly. One quick question. In the hyperbolic scale, is this the beginning of the end for Mo Salah at Liverpool? Will November 31st, 2025 will be remembered as the beginning of the post-Mo Liverpool era? Or is it just that, a moment of a club bottoming out? And do you fully expect him to be back and thriving, if not against Sunderland, then at least against Leeds at the weekend?
Well, my sense has always been that this will be Salah's last season at Liverpool. I know he signed the 2-year contract extension in the summer, but it makes sense to me that the club would have kind of done that, and Salah would have done that, thinking actually maybe after a year, then it's time to move everybody on, or for everyone to have a fresh chapter in their lives, Rog. If this is the beginning of the end, you'd like to think it won't end like this, that it won't end with him sitting unhappily on the bench while the team grows into something else without him. He deserves a golden swan song. He deserves a run of form in which he is the Mo Salah that Liverpool fans will remember. Whether he gets it or not, I don't know. I think there's a lot of focus again over here on whether Slot has upset Salah. But again, they're all footballers. They're all teammates. They're all part of a squad. So really the challenge now is for Salah to win his place back. That's how it works. It's not that he's such a big star that Slot has to keep him happy. If Salah's not performing and the manager has decided he's not performing, then Salah's job is to perform well enough to get back in the team. There's no exceptions because of what you've done. That is brutal, but it is how football works and has always worked. So it's kind of it's a two-way street, I think, and that gets forgotten.
And talking about being forgotten, Manchester City 3, Leeds United too. This was Haaland versus the city he was born in when his dad played for mighty Leeds. This is third from top versus third from bottom. Manchester City, vulnerable, 4 league losses already this season. Last one against Newcastle, reinforced by the damp squib 10-change surrender in the Champions League against Leverkusen midweek. All the big boys back for this one, facing Leeds in the relegation zone. Score of just 11 goals total on the season. I think only Wolves have scored fewer. By the way, it's a repeating theme. Wolves are the barometer of doom forever. They're just like the benchmark. And well, I'll say Leeds lasted longer than many of us thought they would. 59 seconds was all it took. Núñez scurried down the right, pulled the ball back. Phil Foden stuck in before Haaland could get to it and smashed it in off the bar. It would soon be 2. Leeds goalkeeper Lucas Perry made flippy floppy, tried to punch a City corner clear. Gvardiol cleaned up the self-inflicted slop. It did feel like game over. Could have been 4 or 5-0 at half-time. But City do not do easy. They let Leeds back into it. Farke changed to almost mirror Leverkusen's tactics that had done City in Europe. They rampaged down the flanks into space behind. Tanaka, so strong leading the fight. City gifted a goal to the quite beautiful Dominic Calvert-Lewin, a man who needed one on as a second half substitute. DCL then drew a penalty after Gvardiol made an ill-advised decision to chop him down and blow me down. Mecha from the penalty spot, slotted aside initially by Donnarumma. Savour of an incredible career 1 in 4 penalties that he faces, but the ball merely bounced right back to the taker, smashed it in. In those moments, I always remember Churchill's old quote that there's no better feeling than to be shot at without result. For the striker, that feeling of missing, just that agony, and then scoring the rebound reprieve must be just the ultimate mood swing. I've got to say, Raw, if I could change one rule in football, to me it would be the ball's dead as soon as the save comes in. It seems crazy to me.
I've got it in my head, Rog, that the rule used to be at one point that if a penalty hit the post or the bar, the taker couldn't touch it until somebody else had touched it. That might be wrong, but that is what I think the rule used to be. They have subsequently changed that. But I do wonder whether it might be improved if the goalie saves it, the person who took the penalty can't shoot. That might reward the goalkeeper a little bit more. Because ultimately, with penalties, and this was a hilarious penalty because Josko Gvardiol absolutely smashed Dominic Calvert-Lewin, then pointed at the ball as if to say he'd got it, in a way that was like, I mean, we underestimate how good at acting footballers are in the minute. That, you know, there are Oscar-worthy performances every day in the Premier League. Why is this Caicedo's injury pretense?
Caicedo in the movie Pain.
Josko Gvardiol in the movie Innocence. But I wonder whether, there is a world in which you could maybe tweak it a little bit. Does it ultimately is massively in the taker's favour. If you miss and the goalie happens to palm it straight back to your foot, I'm not sure you should be rewarded for that. I
totally agree. By the way, I like your new rule that other players can finish it. These are the defenders and the attackers of equal measure. I do think that the goalkeeper should be given 3 seconds just to laugh and celebrate before someone else can touch it. That's the only tweak I'd make. There was chaos. There was confusion. The second half, Leeds showed real fight, still under there. Much maligned manager Daniel Farke, but 91st minute, Leeds had begun to sit back and salvage a point. Probably stung a little bit by their team's willing propensity to leak an injury time goal when Pep's son, Phil Foden, picked the ball up on the edge of the area, cut across goal, lashed in a dagger of a winner with wicked curve into the corner. Gvardiol there, by the way, magic for him, leaping over the shot with admirable big hops. It was so cruel for Leeds. It was so massive for City, and probably an even bigger relief for the broadcast cameramen who were on the brink of getting it from Pep again after the final whistle. Rule.
Absolutely, it's a blow for Leeds, Rog. It's a lot of confidence to take from that performance, and the fact that they almost went to the Etihad and touched something. But that is the sort of thing that happens when teams are in real trouble: is they put in really creditable performances and get nothing out of it. Still, reasons to be cheerful. They play Liverpool next week. For City,
Chelsea and Liverpool.
But for City, the one thing that I think has gone a little bit under the radar is Phil Foden is really stepping up, which makes a difference for England ahead of the World Cup to have an informed Phil Foden. That's important. But we've been saying all season that City need to find someone to score goals who isn't Erling Haaland. They have.
I know this is an odd set of emotions. To score 3 times without Haaland having a sniff, in some ways, that's the good news. But there are those vulnerabilities in that performance which are so unbelievably evident and need to be fixed. City, Sunderland next weekend going to be fascinating for Pep. Talking about vulnerabilities, Tottenham 1. What? Fulham 2. It's the best of times, the worst of times at Spurs. I know best of times is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, Tottenham fans. But you're in the Champions League. I think before kick-off, 3 points off the Champions League places is still, despite everything, massive wins on the road. But we always talk about how there should be an emotional sentiment table. And I do think Tottenham may even be rivaling Wolves for just how low their fans are. That bare-ass walloping in the North London derby, the 5-goal leak at Paris Saint-Germain midweek. Thomas Frank desperately needed a win here for vibes purposes, for optics purposes. Talked about creating front foot football, and he did in this one. Unfortunately, it was for visiting Fulham, who did all the front foot football in the opening exchanges inside 2 minutes 18 seconds. This was an agony. Even as a neutral, Tete swooped in on a miss-hit cross, stabbed home off a massive deflection. Spurs were reeling. Second goal almost immediately. Just utterly self-inflicted wound. Vicario tried to be too clever with a clearance from near his own corner flag. Dribbled a little, then tried to play it low to feet. Succeeded only in finding it was King who fed Harry Wilson on the touchline. This moment, first time, computing flight, trajectory, physics, velocity, just instinctively arcing a stunning curler into the empty net. This was the earliest Raw that Spurs had been 2-0 down at home in the Premier League. The last thing they needed, peak Spurs, had been achieved.
I wouldn't normally criticise another media organisation, Rog, because it's poor form. But I am watching the game and messing about with my phone at the same time. The Athletics tweet described Vicario dribbling out, being caught and presenting Harry Wilson with an open goal. And I think that's really unfair on Harry Wilson. Harry Wilson was not presented with an open goal.
That's like Eze for England being set up by Foden, you mean?
Yeah, he was standing on the touchline. Yeah. And the finish is genuinely extraordinary. And I know that the focus is on the mistake that Vicario made and the fact that he then got booed off by the Spurs fans. But there will be lots of goalkeepers all around the world who have presented the ball to an opponent in that position and got away with it. And the fact that Wilson finished first time from the touchline that so confidently that he was wheeling away to celebrate while the ball was still in the air, he knew he'd hit it perfectly. It's a genuinely astonishing goal.
It was a beautiful moment if you're a Fulham fan. It was an agony if you're a Tottenham fan. It was gobsmacking because Fulham had just set up so astutely, but even they couldn't believe just how woeful Spurs were in that first half. Backline so open. If it was front foot football, the intensity of Spurs was undetectable. Chemistry nowhere to be found. It was an incoherent shape, an incoherent performance. The XG, I mean, Spurs just keep plumbing up, serving up these XGs which are like from another planet. 0.07 at home against Fulham. This is becoming a frayed nerve of a problem. Second half, boos welcomed the Spurs back as well as ushered them off. There was an uptick in fight briefly. Fulham dropped back, ceded space. Kudus took advantage, an exclamation point ray of hope, but it wasn't to be. On one hand, you've got Tottenham, the injuries for their creativity. Kulusevski, Maddison. Spurs' chance creation has really hit famine levels, but that front line so blunt. There's that statistic, Tottenham averaging just 9.5 shots, 3.2 shots on target per game, both of which are their lowest on record in a single campaign. And behold, they fumbled at home again against Fulham, losing to Fulham for the first time since 2016. Again, only Wolves have a worse home record than Thomas Frank's boys, who've won this once in front of their home fans. At this point, their fans almost come expecting to boo rather than to cheer them. Ange had more wins at this stage of the season last year than Thomas Frank. Football is the opposite of the front foot that was promised, Raw. The Thomas Frank inspiration that kind of coated his leadership at Brentford, that has long been tarnished this season. I hate this question. Is Thomas Frank's tenure at Tottenham in danger of stalling out?
It shouldn't be, and I think we shouldn't manifest that into reality because it's 4 months, it's a squad that's been massively hampered by injury. It's a club that finished 17th in the Premier League last season, so there is a point at which you can't expect too much. the bigger issue for me with Spurs is I wonder if we all, as a broader football environment, kind of misunderstood the complexity of what Thomas Frank has to do, which is that he has to take a load of players, most of whom will have been brought up to think that there is a way that you play and you never change it. That the coach teaches you their system, you learn that system, and you just execute it regardless of circumstance. And Thomas Frank's whole thing is that, look, I'll be completely different this week to last week. I will change constantly, which means that my opponents can't figure me out. I can take advantage of their weaknesses. It's inherently reactive, which is kind of a dirty word in football now, but really shouldn't be. It's how things worked for a long, long time. And I think that's a massive mindset shift for Spurs' players. They're clearly struggling with it. It's more pronounced at home than away, because at home they're expected to be the kind of active team, the team with agency, the team sort of determining the nature of the game. Away they can be more reactive, which is why they're better. Even that 5-3 defeat against PSG, they were pretty good against the champions of Europe. They did okay against the champions of Europe. They scored 3 times. But it's whether he can sustain this home form and not lose the goodwill of the fans. That's a really tricky thing, especially somewhere like Spurs.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about this recently, about the modern predilection of fans coming to games, appearing to willfully want to boo their team. I mean, I got to say, poor Thomas Frank said post-game, I didn't like that our fans booed at him, meaning Vicario. They can't be true Tottenham fans because everyone supports each other when you're on the pitch and we do everything we can to perform. I'm fine with them booing after the match, no problem, but not during. That is unacceptable. Look, never a good sign when a manager's trying to be put in a position to take on the team fans, because there's a disconnect then, and that disconnect always needs a sacrificial lamb, and the manager is really the easiest lamb, if you will, in football. I agree with you, Rod. Thomas Frank, to me, deserves patience, but I think from a Spurs fan's perspective, put myself in their shoes, they've been asked for patience for so many bloody managers, and I don't think he's going to get any, especially because you've talked about this. Well, first of all, he was appointed by Daniel Levy, who's now gone. And new regimes don't have much patience, or don't tend to, with bad optics that they inherit rather than appoint. And secondly, we've not really talked about this. This flaccid Spurs moment is in the context of Arsenal looking invincible, which makes the shadow cast on Tottenham feel even darker, right?
Yeah, 100%. I was going to say that, Rog, that one of the issues that Frank has got is that you say that the fans are going to the stadium ready to boo. Of course they are, because their hated rivals in what is without question England's pettiest rivalry are top by 5 points and about to end more than 2 decades without a Premier League title. Tottenham fans are in a really bad mood. You kind of need to be aware of that. They're going to be in a bad mood all season because something bad is about to happen to them. And I think what you need in that situation is to have a manager who they believe in, that they feel that they are building something, that they might be able to have a moment like Arsenal are about to have, or should have, at some point in the near future. And as it stands, it must just feel to Spurs fans as though they're drifting. And that is a massive it's a massive factor. This stuff isn't happening in isolation.
Yeah, there's that old that we talk about often, the Steve Coogan quote: if you give your average English person the choice between their own success and your failure, they'll choose your failure every time. But what happens if you then succeed? That is what I think Spurs fans are grappling with, not only their own failure, but Arsenal's success, and it is really an agony. Quick word for @Tcock in our Discord, who said it's been a long time since pundits considered the match a Fulham win rather than a loss for our opponent. I'll say this was a huge win for Marco Silva. His team were flagging with no summer spend. I think we've just one first team striker available, but they are back. Resurrected like so many of their players. You look at that squad: Sessegnon, Jimenez, Wilson, all of them, in their own words, recovery jobs. They have now won 3 from their last 4. Godspeed. Talking about big wins when they needed it: Crystal Palace 1, Manchester United 2. A game fascinating. It used to be a slam dunk 3 points for United, quietly become one that they had not won since July 2020. Totem of their transformation into Grey Gardens FC, if you ever needed one. I think they'd lost 3 of the last 4 against Palace. The bullied, now doing the bullying, but playing in Europe, which they did midweek. They lost against Strasbourg Palace. I think they'd lost 2 of the last 3 after a Thursday European night, Oliver Glasner said. It's been a pain. It's been a growing pain. And they look leggy in this one. But United also did. Shaun of the injured Šeško and Cunha, really toothless in the opening exchanges. Palace opened the scoring. Adam Wharton came on this show. In his interview, he talked about how he likes to put a message on the pass. This message that he delivered was almost to Yoro, saying, please foul Mateta as he charges into the box. Mateta buried the penalty just, but then Varsori double kicked it. Another penalty talk. We should have a sponsored segment on this podcast. Raw. IFAB updated their rules on double touches on penalties. When the kicker touches the ball accidentally with 2 feet, it has to be retaken. Old Goat in our Discord, I love this, Raw, said the kick should be allowed to be taken again, but the kicker, like in the NFL, should have to drop back 10 yards and be slightly punished. I love that.
This is the Alvarez rule, isn't it? That they introduced in the aftermath of Julian Alvarez double touching a penalty for Atletico Madrid, I think against Real Madrid in the Champions League, and it being ruled out, which cost Atletico Madrid the game. To be honest, I kind of think if you double touch it and score anyway, it's probably fine. Because you're the one it's the striker who's suffering from the double touch. It makes it much harder to score. So I'm not, it's not something that I have a passionate belief about, Rog, particularly. But my sense is if you can touch it by mistake and still score, maybe it should count double.
I love actually that, though. The referee should say 10 yards from the spot of the foul, move the penalty 10 yards back and do it from there.
Maybe not 10 yards back is too much. Maybe it should be you have to move it 5 yards either side.
And you have to do it with your other foot and tell the goalkeeper where you're kicking it. Just keep changing the rules. I love. By the way, I do see a future of football where it's all just reduced to penalty kicks. But God bless Mateta. Since Oliver Glasner's first Premier League game in Feb 2024, only Erling Haaland and Mo Salah have scored more Premier League goals than JPM. By the way, young fans won't know who Mo Salah is. But I'll just say it's a very good stat. Could have had more. His one-on-ones were supremely rusty in this game. What was shocking about the early United performance was they had such an attacking formation and have been so blunt, but they've been tenacious even when they've struggled over the past 2 months. And everything changed once Palace keeper Dean Henderson put on his baseball cap. United fought back with a stunning moment of audacity. Free kick found Xerxes on the left near the byline. No danger. But Xerxes was feeling dangerous, kind of swaggered, unleashed an airbender of a shot that defied trigonometry. I believe the XG on that shot was 0.03, which is just a chef's kiss way to end a 364-day dry run for Manchester United. Then 9 minutes later, Mason Mount. This was an odd one. The wall was still setting up. The ref blew his whistle anyway. Bruno sensed the danger, credit him, took it quickly, and suddenly Mason Mount just thrashed it right through the wall into the net. And United, I looked at this, I was like, harsh on Palace, shattered by Europe. But you saw United, Europe free roll, all that midweek training that they've had. And Amorim actually talked about this, that they've worked on their set pieces on the training ground. But it was hard to tell how much of this second half was United playing stronger football, how much was just Palace feeling way off.
I think a little bit of both, to be perfectly honest. The fact that United aren't in Europe is a massive advantage for them. But at the same time, we know that they can produce good displays, that they are clearly growing. They're getting better, Manchester United. They still look inconsistent. They still look a little bit uncertain of what they're meant to be doing, but they are improving, and they are improving rapidly because they have that training time. Palace, unfortunately, are finding out kind of one of the universal truths of football, which is that playing midweek in Europe does impact your Premier League form and vice versa. It's really hard that first season when you have to go twice a week. And it's especially difficult actually in the new format because you have more games, so it affects you more.
Palace, their 12 unbeaten at home stretch going back to February is now over. Massive win for Amorim after that flatulent loss to Everton last Monday. 2 smart finishes. First win in 4 for United, who are up to 7th place. Never mind the quality, feel the width. Also got the joy of Lisandro Martinez back from an ACL injury after nearly 300 days out. Football, not always pretty, but the fight, the tenacity, to me are signs that Ruben Amorim is hell-bent on haircuts for all some time after Christmas. Godspeed. Aston Villa 1, Wolves 0. Proper Midlands derby grapple. Wolves last savoured victory back in April, but they were passionate here. They were angry. There was fight. some measure their best performance of the season in new manager Rob Edwards' second game. By the way, that's a bit like me saying my hair is at its longest. At Rich Baggy tweeted, almost Christmas, and Wolves still have less points in the triangle. Oh, that one hurts. Villa won it in the 67th minute. They are remarkable. Most Villa aways, bangers only at the moment. Raw, Boubacar Kamara stepped up, thrashed home. They've had 9 goals. I think that's 56% of the ones they've scored this season from outside the box, which is, in this modern football of stats, it's XG busting.
I think it's the most any Premier League team has ever had after 13 games, the most long-range goals that a team has ever managed. Part of me, the cynical part, Roger, wants to say that's unsustainable. But then part of me thinks, what if they're just really good at shooting from long range? Surely that's okay.
Yeah, it's also a toupee for the fact that they really do need striking options very badly. Irrespective, third place for the Villa, 3 wins in a week. An incredible narrative. I mean, a joke at the beginning of the season. Well, they were 19th after 5 games. But at the same time, this Villa squad still so clearly a work in progress, still so clearly many needs. I just look at Unai Emery and what he's done. This, I think, was his 61st win in 114 Premier League games at Villa. Joint most for any manager who's led the Villa in the Premier League era already. We've talked about that old classic trope from Italian managerial legend Giovanni Trapattoni, who said a good manager makes a team 10% better, a bad manager makes it 30% worse. In the modern game, Unai Emery has proved that the percentages either side are far, far more than that.
Yeah, a huge amount more than 10%, Roger. Like his impact is enormous. The fact that he's been able to do it so consistently since he got to Villa is extraordinary. They are as much as like Guardiola, as much as Man City are Guardiola's Man City, or Arsenal are Arteta's Arsenal. Aston Villa are a kind of conceptualisation of Unai Emery's managerial ideas. They are his team more than most teams belong to a manager. He is their central figure. He is their great hope. And the way he's turned it round is incredible this season. That Villa now back in the chase for a Champions League spot look like the Villa that we've seen over the last couple of years. Having had that dreadful start is extraordinary.
And 2 other games. Brentford 3, Burnley 1. Oh, JJ Watt, feel your pain. An exchange of late penalties made this game come alive. It felt like it was going to actually end as a draw, but then Igor Thiago had other ideas, put the game away, delivering Burnley's 4th straight loss. An incredible finish. Brazilian's 11th goal in 13 games. I admire him greatly. His story, we've talked about it before, 24-year-old. Actually started to play serious football very, very late. Then broke his meniscus in pre-season training after he made that big Premier League move. Had to sit out almost an entire season. I'd say mentally, that must have been just devastating for him. Lesser players would have crumbled, but he's returned with a vengeance. Really a tribute to his own play, but also to the Brentford striker pipeline, which is unparalleled in football. When Brian Mbeumo and Johan Wieser left, everyone predicted they'd be relegated. The goals would dry up. But now only Erling Haaland has scored more Premier League goals than Igor this season. A symbol of a brilliantly run club and a young Brazilian. I can't believe the ecstasy he's feeling, Raw. This kid, who wasn't even scouted as a teen, now being talked about as a possible Brazil World Cup number 9. He's like City of God if City of God was a footballer.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. As you say, he's been through so much, late starter, and then that injury, which basically meant he started the season as a kind of forgotten player. I don't think anyone really remembered that Brentford had spent a lot of money on him, that he had done really well in Europe. The fact that he's now the second highest scorer behind Haaland, that he looks completely at home in the Premier League, and that, to be honest, if he was a slightly more famous name, he would already be in the Brazil squad. I spoke to a Brazil-based journalist the other day who said that the issue is that Brazilian fans don't really know who he is, so there's no clamour for him to be in the team. There's a little bit of snobbery, I think, about the fact that he plays for one of the lesser Premier League sides. The Brazilians generally aren't that impressed by that. But if he keeps this up, it'll be really hard for Carlo Ancelotti to ignore him, and that would be an incredible way for his story to go if he ended up at the World Cup with Brazil.
Also incredible, Nottingham Forest 0, Brighton and Hove Albion 2. A Forest who come in unbeaten in 5 games all comps, coming off a fine 3-0 midweek victory over Malmo in Europe. Last Sunday's 3-0 beat down on Liverpool A statement win, which was effectively Sean Dyche ripping off his jersey and declaring, "I'm out here, MFers." And I did love Glenn Murray on co-coms before this game, saying that the Forest players were, quote, starting to look comfortable under a Sean Dyche regime. I just say, take it from me, there is never any comfort for any player in a Sean Dyche regime. I think you just have less terror over time. Visitors, a Brighton side, came with the memory of a 7-0 beatdown in this same game 10 months ago. Here, the Seagulls were bright but profligate until just before the break. Highly intelligent Danny Welbeck near post run dragged the Forest backline out of shape, and Maxime de Kuyper collected calmly, finished emphatically. Belgians' first goal for Brighton. Then 19-year-old Greek substitute Stefanos Simars made it 2 late in the second half after a comical mix-up in the Forest backline. And Huertela's mob, just their second away win of the season, move up to 5th with a clash against top 4 hopefuls Aston Villa loading midweek. Raw, feels like every single pod we talk about another green shoots team of hope. Sunderland, Palace, Bournemouth, now Brighton. Is it a sign that this is the best Premier League season ever? Trademark. Or the worst, in that so many teams are vulnerable, beatable on any given Sunday or Saturday?
Yeah, there's an element of Rorschach test about it, I think. You can look at it and use it as proof of either. I would put myself firmly in camp A. I think that this is the strongest the league has ever been. That there are so many teams who've been able to scout well, to spend well, to retain talent, to replace talent when they have had to sell it. That what you've got now are kind of 15 or 16 teams who can basically beat each other. And at one end there's maybe Arsenal, and let's throw in City, I suppose. And at the other end there's maybe Wolves and Burnley, who are a little bit weaker. But everybody else looks pretty much the same, really. And I think the last week is quite good. Is quite good evidence of that. So Forest go to Liverpool, destroy Liverpool, then have a home game against Brighton, which in the form Forest are in should really be, another 3 points. But Brighton are significantly better than Forest. Whether Brighton then get beaten by Villa, I don't know. But there are other examples elsewhere. Bournemouth were a month ago one of the form teams of the league. Now they're not. Sunderland have come up, invested really well, look great. And I don't want to kind of preempt anything, Rog, but Everton as well are quite a good example. Great result against United. And then what happened this weekend? That
was the most predictable unpredictability of all, though, Raw. The Sunderland game was fascinating. Sunderland 3, Bournemouth 2, 7th versus 8th. J-Dubs called it a cuddly classic out. I wrote in the Friday's newsletter, this was a bit like watching Mumble from Happy Feet play a team of Care Bears. It was just like joy-filled. Even though the stadium alight was pitch black at 3 p.m, with rain absolutely lashing down, which made the game, both ironic in an Alanis Morissette way and also just absolutely electric. Bournemouth took a 2-0 lead inside 50 minutes. By the way, the number of people tweeting us and in our Discord being like, oh, the Sunderland bubbles burst. I do need to interrupt your regularly scheduled programme to celebrate a wonderful moment, ultimately an irrelevant moment, but a great American moment in Premier League history. Tyler Adams, the Prince of Wappingers Falls, pounced on the Sunderland turnover in his own half, drove into the open space, and then just looked up, saw the goalkeeper off his line, went full David Beckham, Wayne Rooney. Wayne Rooney came on after doing that for DC United. I asked him what he thinks about it, because the ball's in the air forever. What's he think about? He said, I think about the goalkeeper. I just think, please don't try and save it, because you're just going to look silly. And I thought about that when I watched Roofs try and save the ball and then end over just going tit over arse. Raw, as an American, it's easy for me to get carried away when I see one of our boys perform a major laser from 47.4 yards out. Opta said, furthest out goal in the last 2 Premier League seasons. But you're a neutral, you're objective, you're a journalist. Can you just confirm this was a lovely special moment, right?
It was an amazing goal, absolutely incredible goal. And you're right, the rain, the torrential rain, just made everything in that game look special, made it incredibly bad-tempered. But that goal was just beautifully, perfectly judged. And there's something, the tension of waiting to see whether Roofs will get back, whether it'll drop under the crossbar. It's exquisite. It's an exquisite way to score a goal.
Yeah, I actually texted with his family because I wondered whether it was actually a pass by Taylor. But I'm like, no, he looked up and everything. Like, it was a stunning bloody moment. We're filming with him on Sunday after the World Cup draw, and I can't wait to break it all down. Even though from that point on, everything flipped. There were 15 minutes, 2-0 up, Bournemouth cruising, but in the words of Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. 30th minute, Sunderland earned a penalty. Enzo Lefay smashed it. It was an anger penalty, the best kind. And then 60 seconds after half-time, really clever Granit Xhaka slipped past to Bertrand Traoré, finished near post 2-2, fourth assist of the season for Granit. Then 69th minute, nice, Sunderland corner, Brian Brobby again, only scores winners, thrust it over the line 3-2 for the comeback. 13 games into this Premier League season, Sunderland are in 6th place. They're above United, above Liverpool. I mentioned last week that I interviewed Regis Lebris, asked him how he's forged this new collective out of all these different parts, and he just laughed and said, I don't know. So let me ask you, Raw, because everybody told me there would be a flash in the pan. How do you understand it? Newly promoted team coming back from 2-0 down to defeat a pretty accomplished Premier League outfit. And continue to defy the haters and the faders.
Yeah, and as you say, it must have felt, certainly in the stadium, and maybe even among the players, as Bournemouth went 2-0 up, they will be waiting to an extent. There'll be something in the back of their minds that their bubble might burst, that they might hit a roadblock, that things might get trickier. And yet they just keep kind of meeting these challenges and overcoming them. It was the same against Arsenal a few weeks ago. Their belief must be growing day in, day out, game in, game out. They've got far more points than anyone would have possibly believed at this stage of the season. They look like a team that can sustain it. They've got depth, they've got quality, they're really astutely managed. It's amazing how quickly they've been able to do it. And look, it wasn't cheap, all of that recruitment, but they spent pretty much all of the money really well.
And it's working. It's the first time in the club's history they've come from 2-0 down to win a Premier League game. They remain unbeaten at home. So what could possibly go wrong? Their next 3 games, December 3rd at Liverpool and Manchester City, running into December 14th against Newcastle, the Tyne and Weird derby. It's an incredible one. Godspeed. Enjoy it, Sunderland fans. Away the lads. Talking about enjoying and not enjoying, finally Everton 1, Newcastle 4. I mean, we've laughed about it already. God bless. This is like so Everton, an ecstatic win. Against Manchester United last Monday, in which our captain, Seamus Coleman, limped off, injured after 9 minutes agony. Then our midfielder, Gay, slapped Michael Keane, his own teammate, in the face, got sent off. Everyone was like, what? On our MIB Discord, GFOP at B. O'Leary asked, where were you for the great Everton Civil War of 2025? But we had no time to answer, because down to 10, we only went and scored a worldie to win it. The most Everton are we game of all time. And I just knew going into this, when Everton expectations are this high, Raw, we fairly failed to disappoint all the bloody time. Newcastle had not won on the road since April. That was the other big clue, and so it came to pass. We're utterly smashed in this one. Not a lot to talk about. 52 seconds in, Chow scored, I think, the earliest goal of the season, first of 2 for him. Toon romped. They were stronger, smarter, more dominant in every facet. And even though Kieran Dewsbury-Horde scored a consolation banger, it was just crappy Thanksgiving. We are so flawed. No fullbacks, no strikers. We are so self-maiming. But Raw, here's what I'd say. I am still so nourished. I'm still laughing. I am still celebrating that Old Trafford win. And there is something about football, whatever happens, and darkness and good things, but whatever, we'll always have that moment. The Blue Boys, after that game on Monday night, celebrated as if they won a trophy, and I love it. Because that was a comedy classic. I think of like Leslie Nielsen's Naked Gun as like a comedy classic. That Everton win was up there. And to me, that's honestly all that football's about.
I think that's a very positive attitude, Rog. Yeah, there was... winning at Old Trafford is much more memorable than if you'd taken a point against Newcastle at home. There is something special about beating Manchester United generally, but also beating Manchester United in the context of your midfielder got sent off for slapping his teammate is inherently very funny and very enjoyable. The Newcastle game, which obviously you don't want to talk about, I do think that in this version of the Premier League, where things are so balanced, where so many teams are capable of beating so many other teams, I do think scoring the opening goal is becoming increasingly important. That I have no statistical evidence for this, Rog. I might do some research this week, maybe on the plane. Let's find out. I do wonder whether the team that draws first now is increasingly likely to win. I realise that obviously that's not true of Sunderland, Bournemouth, but it felt as though Everton, Newcastle in particular, was that kind of game where Newcastle are probably better on paper, got a stronger team, and Everton were at home. They have been a little bit more consistent, roughly in the same place in the table, very minor differences in terms of points. It felt like whoever scored first would win, just because it changes the game so much. And because Newcastle scored so early, that kind of makes a big difference.
We should have got points just because it wasn't Anthony Gordon that scored us. I do want to say Tierno Barry, who tries so hard, this striker who has not yet struck. He's 24 years of age. He thought he'd scored in this one. It's actually a really heartbreaking moment. Reminds me of Milhouse in The Simpsons when you can go to the video and find out exactly the moment that his heart breaks. Thought he'd scored. We were 4-0 down. He ran off and just celebrated as if he'd just won the game. But it was really for him. He'd finally scored. And then the referee VAR'd it off for handball in the build-up. And my God, that was an agony. But important to remember, young listeners, if your sports team is the most painful and unreliable part of your existence, doing pretty well in life, and I believe that utterly. But Roy, you're right, I don't want to talk about it, so let's close with a letter from a GFOP, Jacob Geiber from Atlanta, Georgia. Roy, do the honours.
Dear Rog, Rory and the MIB team, I noticed that Wrexham started both Nathan Broadhead and Ryan Longman today against Blackburn, in addition to Dan Scarr. Who are other players in your all-time starting 11 with body part or body description related names? I'm terrible at stuff like this, Rog.
You are? I thought you'd be really good at this. My brain doesn't work like this either. But I'll play for time for you by just saying, and let you, please God, you'll come up with somebody. But when I had kids, each time I had a friend, and everyone needs a friend like this, a man called Eddie Portnoy, who I'd call when my wife and I thought we'd come up with a name in the maternity ward. And I'd tell him what we were going to name them. And he'd immediately, on the spot, tell us how they could be teased with a name on the schoolyard as 7-year-olds. I really wanted to call my second son Laser, but he pointed out immediately 100 reasons not to. He's like, he'll be teased like this for years. So I do think about this through this lens, how hard it would be to have been Nicky Butt if you were not really good at football, Raw.
Yeah, Nicky Butt is one. I mean, I as I say, I am terrible at this.
Are you really?
The furthest I got was Mano Meneses could be manager, because Mano means hand. That was as...
Wow, that brain's going to some Duolingo places for this one.
I feel like head is probably quite a rich seam to mine. There will be players who've...
For the Anglo-Saxon days.
There are lots of players who have got... I mean, Dean Whitehead was a player.
Incredible.
But this is not my forte.
David Seaman.
I mean, that's a different level of joke. But yeah, I mean, I suppose that is kind of body part related, yeah.
Arsenal's
I mean, Michael Ball.
Yeah, God bless. We're there now. By the way,
we've hit a seam now. We
are. You just reminded me, I gave Michael Ball, an Everton player. Everton had a winger, Mike Treblecock, who scored twice in the FA Cup final. Of the current crop, Jacob, I'd say my favourite is probably Alphonse Areola. I do think about him on a weekly basis. Leader in the Body Part Clubhouse room.
Yeah, I think Alphonse. That's a really good shout. Alphonse Areola is a wonderful kind of masterpiece of a body part related name. I don't think we're at a full 11, and this is not a good team because it's got Mano Meneses as a manager. It's got Dean Whitehead and Nathan Broadhead. I'm not even having Longman, to be honest. That's not a body part. That's just long man. Scar I quite like, to be fair. But Alphonse Areola will be the goalkeeper. The rest of the team, I think, is up for grabs.
Godspeed, Jacob Geiger. And remember, GFOPs, join our Discord, which I love spending match day in. You bring such joy to our life. Jacob, send us your postal. We'll send you a patch. Keep sending us your questions at meninblazers@gmail.com. We'll answer everything. But that is it for this week. Before we go, got to first give huge thanks to Bank of America, the official bank of US Soccer, and the FIFA World Cup 2026 for supporting all of us at the Men in Blazers Media Network. Discover what's possible in sports and life. What would you like the power to do? We have a William Saliba interview dropping on December the 3rd. We're filming with my personal hero, Tommy Fleetwood, the day after, UTFT, and then Raw comes out for some World Cup action to the United States. I can't wait to be with you, you beautiful Crown Prince of Harrogate.
We've got so many food recommendations, Roger. I'm quite intimidated. I'm not going to eat between now and Boston. That's my plan.
Going on a juice cleanse. I joke. This is Rog sending you big love. Let's not take a second of watching football together for granted. And courage.